أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وأنكحوا الأيام منكم والصالحين من عبادكم إن يكونوا فقراء وإمائكم إن يكونوا فقراء يغنهم الله من فضله والله واسع عليم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. By the end of the stage of childhood and the beginning of the stage of maturity and puberty, there are certain inclinations and propensities formed within each human. Among those is natural tendency towards seeking knowledge, for example, or formation of ethics and morality, going after morals, learning what morals are, ethics, what kind of ethics they are, or for example, striving for freedom, for justice. Every human being is inclined with those types of propensities and inclination. It is part of his humanity. At childhood, we don't recognize those. But as we stage in later stages of life, we start to recognize those kind of things. For example, striving toward liberty and justice and freedom. I told you yesterday and the nights before, the main component to make the change in society, those revolutions, are done by the youth. Why? Because they are the ones who truly feel the need toward freedom and liberty. They would like to be independent. So, through this kind of inclination, they go through, revolution, they change things, they revolutionize things. Those are all natural inclinations within human being. And if you look at those inclinations, you see them that they are stemming from his inner soul, from his conscience. The conscience provoke people for justice, for seeking knowledge, for gaining morality and ethics. This is coming out of conscience. Animal does not recognize this. No animal speaks of, of justice or liberty. But a human being is the focus of the human being on those. Why? Because those are consciously driven. They all come from his conscience. This is one sort of inclinations. Other sort are natural tendencies and desires within the animalistic feature of a human being. For example, the sense of rage. When we become enraged, all animals become enraged. And they use it to defend themselves sometimes, to take care of their interests. And of course, a human being is not an exception. The propensity toward rage, the propensity toward physical desire, sexual desire, this is within human being. Those types of desires and inclinations, those are intrinsic in every living thing. It does not pertain only to human. All animals have those kind of things. And of course, human being is not an exception. That's why we call them animalistic. Based on the animal feature of a human being, they also exist within him. Now, those desires, sometimes they become very pervasive, very strong and dominant, that they can dominate the entire life of a human being. That a human being's life becomes characterized by those kind of desires. That's why you see Sigmund Freud, you describe a human. When you tell him psychologically, how would you describe a human being? You say that a human being are creatures that are driven by sex and rage. Those two things that drive a human being. This is how it shapes their morality, their behavior, their ethic, all based on those two instincts. In some sense, it is true, because they are very strong, and if they're left unchecked, they become dominant. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam has a very beautiful saying. He says that عَبْدُ الشَّهْوَةِ أَذَلُّ مِنْ عَبْدِ الرَّبِّ. Whoever becomes subject to those kind of desires, he's even worse than any slave. Why? Because the slave is afraid of his master. If the master does not see him, does not influence him at a particular time, he goes back to his own style. But someone who's always under the influence of his physical desire, he's 24 hours is under that influence. He cannot get rid of that. He cannot free himself. The Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam says why those two are dangerous. Because when they become dominant, people lose their mind. Their mind become under the shadow of those two desires. What he has said alayhi salam, زوال العقل بين دواعي الشهوة والغضب. When we are enraged or the physical desire becomes dominant, we lose our mind. Rationality is gone. No more brain, no more logic. At that time, a human being is not considered to be human. Goes back again to its animalistic feature. And at early age, at very early stage of life, it is difficult for a human being without guidance, without coaching, without feeling. Sometimes we have an internal fear and sometimes external fear. Without those things, a human being cannot balance between the two, between his conscious and between his desires. Many times, the desires take over. And if the desire takes over, that's it. It can destroy an entire nation. It can bring many disasters and troubles to the owner or to the entire society. There was a battle during the ancient Arab called Harb al-Fijar. This battle took place between two groups of people, two tribes. That's in the Arabian Peninsula. Between a tribe called Bani Amr and the other tribe called Canaan or Quraysh. Those two fought 4 years, a bloody war, for a battle that is called Harb al-Fijar. What was the cause of this? Because of this, they used to have a market. It's called Suq Aqab. In this market, a young man from Canaan, he noticed, a lady, where she was covering her face. He came and asked her to remove the veil to see her. She refused. She didn't do that. What he did, he sneaked, he went behind her, put a hook on her skirt with a rope and stayed, some distance. As she stood up, he pulled the hook, and exposed her. When she was exposed, she screamed and asked for help from her tribe. She said, Ya la Bani Amr. When Bani Amr heard this, they took their sword and came to the scene and killed this young man. This young man, when he saw that those people are rushing to him, he also said, Ya la Canaan. He also, seek help from his tribes, and the war started. The battle started during the sanctified month of Rajab. We have 4 months that are considered to be sanctified, sacred months. Battle does not take place in that. The battle took place in that month, and prolonged for 4 years, 4 complete years, between two tribes. The entire region was engulfed in battle and fighting and killing due to this sexual desire, this physical desire that goes uncontrolled. And unfortunately, brothers and sisters, even today, that we are speaking and we are living in the 21st century, that a human being has advanced so much, yet we are still, under the influence of this kind of desire. Just take a look in the streets, in the market, at university, at a school, at the fingertip of your, when you go to the computers, satellite TV, all of those are nothing but a provocation to this kind of desire. Recently, recently, just probably a year or 2 years ago. Very interesting story. In Denmark, a department store had liquidation. Said whoever comes, you put a specific date, the owner put a specific day. That day, whoever comes, the first come, the first serve. We'll give all kind of clothes for free. We'll give it for free, provided for one thing, that whoever comes has to be completely nude to enter the store and take anything he wants, dress it, and leave. This was the condition. There was a long line forming for this department store. Maybe the only one who didn't show up was the queen and her husband, for obvious reasons. The rest of people all stayed in line just to get those clothes. Don't they have money to buy? But why they do this? To provoke people, to disseminate indecency and debauchery within the society. There are large conglomerates, big corporations spend billions of dollars, for wickedness, for lewd act, for such kind of indecency to corrupt people. And unfortunately, the West has taken, the first-class seat in this. At the same time, look at the contrary. Look at the irony between those two. At the same time, here comes a religious institution that advocates complete celibacy. No marriage at all. The priest should not get married. Complete abstinence. Look at the hypocrisy. From one side, the sexual revolution has become rampant everywhere. At any corner you see. At the other side, they tell you no. Complete celibacy. Don't even approach women. And we've seen the fake, dogma. Only in US, and this is based on statistics, only on US, in 2009, the US dioceses have paid $2.6 billion to the victims of the child molestations that have been taken place at the hand of the priests. $2.6 billion only in 2009. We're not talking about last decades. We're not talking about Europe, about Germany. If you put all of those, you will see billions of dollars had spent only for the settlement between the priest and the victims and the families of the victims. In the US, there are 110,000 priests. This statistic goes for 2 years, maybe now the number has gone. Out of those, 4,500, meaning 5%, almost 5%, were accused of child molestation and assault. Now they come and tell you, syllabus. Don't get any. Here comes this with his solutions. The school of Ahl al-Bayt alayhi salam. Brothers and sisters, believe me, if you do thanking to Allah, if you show your gratitude 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days, for God that made you humble followers of Ahl al-Bayt alayhi salam, still not enough. Why? Because we have a constant pharmacy that has all kind of medicine that is called Ahl al-Bayt. That is called the Prophet, peace be upon him, and Ahl al-Bayt. You do not see any problem that there is no solution that they did not give us. Therefore, we should be so thankful for being on the right path. Being on the right path really means a blessing. Remember when I talked about Tawfiq and Mubarak, being Mubarak? One criteria of being Mubarak is to follow the school of Ahl al-Bayt alayhi salam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Islam came to regulate this instinct, to make it humane, to humanize it and regulate it. If he combated, he is combating a natural thing within a human being. And if he lets it go like this, then we become just like Europe. Therefore, it came to regulate it, to put it within the framework of sanctified marriage. That's why the Prophet, peace be upon him, says, النكاح سنتي فمن رغب عن سنتي فليس مني. Marriage, the institution of marriage is my tradition. Whoever does not follow on this, basically, is not following on my tradition. There was a lady, her name was Zainab Al-Attar. Zainab Al-Attar came to Salam, the wife of the Prophet, peace be upon him. And, they had a discussion. She had a discussion with Salam. Salam, she saw that this woman was completely, out of touch. No makeup, no finish up, not even combing her hair. Told her, what's going on? She said, because my husband has abandoned me. What do I waste my time for? He's gone. He doesn't even come home all the time. He's in the masjid praying. Salama went and told the Prophet, peace be upon him, told him that this lady is saying this, that her husband has abandoned her. The Prophet calls her and tells her, why your husband has abandoned you? She said, Ya Rasulullah, he would like to get more thawab. He thinks that the thawab, only in the prayers, he wants to be zahid, he doesn't like his life. He only needs to do prayers, he's happy with this. Listen to the Prophet. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, لو علم ما له من الثواب لأقبل إليك ولما تركك. If he knows how much God would give him thawab, just being with you, he would not have abandoned you. Now the woman becomes curious. She would like to see what kind of thawab is. Now all the brothers, now they woke up, alhamdulillah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And the word for you brothers, here, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi said, ثوابه كثواب الشاهد سيفه في سبيل الله. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. The reward of this husband who comes to his wife is like someone who has his sword in the battle defending Islam. This is the thawab that he will get. You see, out of it, why is it so? Why would the Prophet emphasize on this? Because we only look at the external threats. We only see the external enemy. The enemy who's against us, we defend our country. But we don't look at our internal enemy. What is the internal enemy? It's our commanding soul. Our commanding soul. This is a natural desire within every human being. If this is not satisfied in the right way, it will be satisfied in the wrong way. Therefore, shaitan becomes dominant. Therefore, the Prophet, when he tells his wife, to this lady, to go and tell her husband, in order to combat the internal enemy. And this is what we should recognize. That the significance of marriage is not only, a matrimony between two. It is rather combating the internal enemy, the commanding soul, that in assistance with shaitan can be dominant. Here is another story. One lady came to Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam and told him, أصلحك الله إني متبتلة. He told her, what is mutabattila? What do you mean by mutabattila? She said, إني لا أريد الزواج. I don't want to get married. I'm not too happy with marriage. I don't like to. He told her why. What is the reason? She said, ألتمس في ذلك الفضل. So I reach virtue. I'm looking for virtue. I would like to be virtuous, pious. He told her to be pious. You abandon marriage? She said yes. He told her, if it were so, Fatima al-Zahra would have abandoned marriage. There is no woman better than Fatima al-Zahra. Go back to your home. There is no such guy. You can't find, you can't say with virtue you abandon marriage. There is no virtue in abandoning marriage and being celibate. Why? Because marriage gives you a lot of protections, brothers and sisters. Here, I'm just going to be listing them very quickly. There are multiple problems, social problem, individualistic problem, health-related issues that marriage can take care of and solve. Number one, is the moral and ethical problems. Just look at the newspapers, read the news. Those criminals who commit a crime or felonies or some big things, murder people, steal things, go recklessly, even reckless drivers, brothers and sisters. When you check them, their marital status, most of the time they turn to be single. They're not married. I'm not saying that no married person will drive too fast. No. But the majority of those reckless drivers, reckless criminals, happen to be single. Why? Because they don't have anything to lose. There's no one is waiting for them at home. No children, no spouse. Why would they care? Therefore, the crime starts to come from the fact that he sees himself or she herself, has nothing to lose. So, number one is the ethical and moral problems that marriage takes care of. Number two, health-related issues. How many sexually transmitted diseases exist in the world? From HIV that becomes AIDS later on, the immunodeficiency syndrome, the acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, to hepatitis, to syphilis, to tons, nameless of herpes, nameless, many, countless of those diseases that are related to promiscuity and, being, sexually active, but without being regulated. Again, if you look at the statistic, you see the victims, most of those 6 victims turn to be singles, not married. Marriage always, put a cap, put an obstacle, put a brake on the pedals of people who have natural tendency toward those kind of, lewd acts. And most importantly, brothers and sisters, emotional problems. Marriage takes care of our psychology, our emotion. God in the Holy Quran says, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا. So you settle down. You're after settlement. Every human being deserves settlement. You need to settle. You need to share your thoughts, share your agonies, share your happiness sometimes. Share the moment with someone that you love, you cherish. You have natural tendency toward. Those are natural within a human being. Here, in the US, it says that 7% of populations, almost 18 millions of people of population in the US are infected with depression. You know what depression is? People don't eat, don't talk, don't disclose themselves, always inward in themselves, stay at home, don't do anything. This is an emotional sickness, brothers and sisters. This is psychological sickness that also can affect the body. People can die from depression. High proportion of those victims happen to be singles because they don't see anyone who cares about them. A human being is not only about eating and drinking and exercising. It's about emotion. Would like to see that his presence is felt. Someone cares for him. Someone would like him, would embrace him. This is part of our humanity. Therefore, the narrations of the Imams and the Prophet, peace be upon him, have warned against being a celibate and singles. Here is the famous saying of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Says, "Shirarkum izzab." The worst individuals are those who are single. وَأَرَادِلُ مَوْتَاكُمْ عِزَّاكُمْ. Those who die, but not in a decent way. Rather in a bad day, in a bad way, those are your izzab, your celibates, those who do not get married. And look at this hadith. It says, الْمُتَزَوِّجُ النَّائِمُ. The one who's married, but he's sleeping. أَفْضَلُ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ مِنَ الصَّائِمِ الْقَائِمِ الْعَزِلِ. The married person who has a spouse while sleeping in God's eye is better than the person who is standing up, the entire night and praying to Allah but he's single or she's single. The other one, the previous one, has a higher status. And when we say that we get married, brothers and sisters, my advice, to this community and every community, start an early age, brothers and sisters. Don't let your son or your daughter to become very mature. At early age, once he reaches the age of maturity and can distinguish between good and bad, can form some thought in his mind. You see, we said that there are two criteria. One is the rationality, the mental ability, and the other one is the maturity. Once those two have formed, tawakkal ala Allah. Don't wait a minute. Don't say, no, I'm waiting for my son to finish his school, to finish his graduate school, to find a job. She's still young. She's only 18. Those are nonsense, brothers and sisters. You see why? When your child reaches maturity, at what age they reach maturity? When they are 12, 13, 14, at that age, right? At what time they get married? 50, 25, 26, 27. Meaning the 12 years before, they have reached that status, their sexual peak, but you ask them to stay away. You tell them, no, wait and wait. Like someone, you keep him hungry for a few days, make him so hungry, severely hungry, and then put some pork in front of him. Put some meat in front of him. Once he eats from the pork, you start screaming and yelling. So, oh, Khuda, what happened? Why my son went, in a bad way? What did I do? Why God is punishing me? I am punishing myself. God has given me brain. The time that my son and my daughter reach that age, waiting is wrong. Waiting is troublesome. At that time, and the regime will not help. So you have a brain, you have an idea, act upon it. Don't wait until the girl or the boy become 25, 27, 30. Every year passes, the demand also become high. If the girl was expecting, the night of her dream to have $10,000 in the account, next year she wants $25,000. The third year she needs a Mercedes. And fourth year she needs a big mansion. Or the guy, at the first year when he's 20, he needs someone, good looking. Next year he wants a beauty pageant. Third year he wants Miss World, and things like that. The expectations go high. The demand go higher. And higher, until, he ends up in something very, very poor and very unwanted. While they are at young age, it is the responsibility of the parents to think for them and to choose the proper way. I'm not saying that they choose the mate, they choose the spouse. No. Rather, they make the conditions available and ready for someone to choose a best spouse. Here are the guidelines, brothers and sisters. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. You see, brothers and sisters, why people get married? I mean, are we really crazy that we go into certain type of relationship that tighten our hands and makes more obligation on us, that we have to do so much compromise and so much limitation? Why is it all done through marriage? All of this has to do with one thing, brothers and sisters, and that is we love ourselves. The fact that we love ourselves, we would like to live as much as we can, to have an eternal life for hundreds of thousands of years. But practically that is impossible. No one can survive more than 90, 100 years. That's the maximum. But how did a human being bypass this? How do you think? Human beings have bypassed this by their natural extension, through their progeny, through their children. When I have children, now if I die, I say, Alhamdulillah, I am gone, but my children are there. My legacy has been carried out. It will continue, inshallah. This is the way a human being bypassed this kind of need, this kind of a problem that we face. So marriage all has to do with virtuous people, with virtuous son and daughter. There is no one, even the bad people, there is no one would like to have bad children. Everyone would like to have decent children, good children, virtuous children. Brothers and sisters, good children do not come out of vacuum. Do not come out of bad parenting. Do not come from a bad source. If the spouse is bad, naturally children also will come back. Come to be bad. You see, science has proven this. Plus, the narrations from our imams, that half of the characteristics and features of the children comes from either from their father or from their mother. Half of our chromosomes from our mothers. The other half is from our father. Naturally, their features, their behaviors, whatever they look like, all will be reflected on us. Therefore, when it comes to have good children, the number one criteria that everyone should think about is to have a good spouse. To think about his spouse. What kind of a spouse are you looking for? At that time, the conscience and the brain should be the judge, not the eye. The eye can get you in trouble. By eye, you see someone gorgeous, beautiful, mashallah, handsome, wonderful. You will see what kind of car he's driving, or what is his job. Those are all your eyes. But the brain, the mind tells you something else. Tells you if this person is suitable or not. Our brain should be the judge, brothers and sisters. I'm not minimizing from the fact that when you search for a spouse, he should look or she should look, decent. The more beautiful, the better it is. But that should not be the lone criteria. Why? Because by age, all of us become old. This is beautiful skin of us, all will become wrinkled, And God forbid if there's an accident and something happened to us that we need a facelift or a trouble in our facial features, the spouse has to abandon us if they have chosen us for only our appearance. Therefore, put in mind, brothers and sisters, when you search, make your brain the judge, not the eyes, not your desire. Your conscience has to be the judge. Here are some guidelines, brothers and sisters. For the bride, when the bride is waiting for her future husband, what are those criteria? By the way, brothers and sisters, those what God has said. I'm not bringing from my, from my pockets. Here, God says, وَأَنْكِحُوا الْأَيَامَ مِنْكُمْ وَالصَّالِحِينَ مِنْ عِبَادِكُمْ. The suitables. Those who deserve that you wed with them, that you get married with them. Who are those? The Prophet, peace be upon him, put two criteria. He says, إِذَا جَاءَكُمْ مَنْ تَرْضَوْنَ دِينَهُ وَأَمَانَتَهُ فَزَوِّجُوهُ. Two things. Number one, in another hadith, it says, دِينَهُ وَخُلُقَهُ. Two things. First, his faith, his religion, how much he's committing to his religion and his faith as a believer. And number two, his demeanor. Those are the two criteria. He never tell you go and check on his bank account or his, financial status or even his, degree at university or how much he studied, what kind of, business he's running. As long as he's faithful and has good demeanor, go and choose him. Then the Prophet says, أَلَّا تَفْعَلُوهُ تَكُنْ فِتْنَةٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَفَسَادٌ كَبِيرٌ. It will be disaster. If you don't follow suit on those two criteria, it will be disaster. Disaster for yourself, disaster for others, and disaster for entire society. God has guaranteed. You see, brothers and sisters, let's say someone has no religion, no faith. He comes and tells you, I pledge for 1 year. You go to this Sophie or any other grocery store, whatever you buy, I will pay. I will pay. Don't worry about your food. Don't worry about your drinks for 1 year. Wouldn't you be so happy? And next day you rush to Sophie's and buy as much as you can? Because someone has promised you. Maybe that person does not have a faith, does not have any religion. Maybe he's, atheist. He tells you, I am guaranteeing for 1 year. You buy and I pay. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a pledge. He is the Lord of this universe, has said, إِنْ يَكُونُوا فُقَرَاءَ يُغْنِهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. Don't check for his status. Don't say that this guy has or does not have. God is telling us. Unfortunately, we are believers only by tongue. When we say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, only in the mind, but not in heart. We don't have trust in God. We don't have trust in God. We don't have trust in what Al-Baqarah and Al-Sadiq says. We don't trust the Quran that we recite. But God forbid, let the doctor write a prescription and tell you that this medicine, take it after dinner. Would you ever dare not to take it after dinner? If you told him, the doctor has told me I have to take it after dinner. As a doctor is Jibreel. He came and told me, you have to take it after dinner. We never let the words of doctor down. And all my appreciation go to the doctors, especially to the doctors that we have. For their, for their health. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. But also let's consider God and the amount of doctors as well. When they tell you something, they really mean it. They are trustworthy. They never lie to you. Our problem, brothers and sisters, is the trust. We don't have trust. There's a beautiful story. Although it's fictitious, it is not, it's not authentic. But the morale is very beautiful. It's very relevant to our story. They say there happened to be a mountain climber. We take the mountains, and climb the mountains. He used to live in the foothill of a big mountain, huge mountain. One night he decided in the winter time, when the temperature was freezing, the temperature was below zero, and there was heavy snow, he decided by himself only, without telling anyone, to go and climb the mountain. He put his backpack with a rope, with a hook, and some nails. They would nail on the mountain, and they step on the nail. Well, there is a hook that is connected to the rope, and the rope goes through the backpack, and they climb the mountain, just like this. So he went one night by himself without telling anyone. As he goes, and of course the temperature was so cold, he started to climb the mountain. He went until he reached very, very close to the summit. As he was about to grab the rope on top of the summit, his leg slid, his foot slipped, and he was thrown to the bottom of the valley. But since there's a hook with the rope that has gone through his backpack, it held him, and he was hanging, but stranded in the middle of the air. At night, complete darkness, and so freezing, the temperature was so cold that if he stays like this for 30 minutes, he's dying. He will die. He will not survive. No cell phone, no one to hear him. In the middle of darkness, cannot see anything. He doesn't know where he is. Nothing. He cannot even see, 1 meter from his side, from his distance. At that time, he thinks of God. Oh, God. He screams, God! And he only gets the echo. Again, he screams, God! For a third time, he hears an answer. Yes, what do you want? He said, oh God, I'm so lucky that you answered. He said, I was looking for you for 40-some years. Where have you been? Now you calling me? He said, sorry God, I know, I know I'm in a bad shape. I've turned away from you for so many years, but I am sorry. Now I need you. He said, what do you need? I've been calling you so many times. Many times I sent you messengers, I told you to follow on this, but she didn't follow. Now that she wants me, I said, okay, the past is for the past. This is start a new page. This is starting from now. I promise you. You do this for me and I do everything that you want. He said, what do you want? He said, safety. God told him I could not save you. For one reason is that you do not have trust in me. You never trust me. He said, I do. Believe me, I do. This time I do. He said, no, you're not. You're lying. Still you're lying. He said, no, I am promising you that I am trusting you. He said, if you say so, take the knife from your pocket and cut out the rope. You're hanging by the rope, cut this rope out. He said, what do you think, I'm crazy? Of course I trust you, but not to that extent. He said, didn't I tell you that you don't trust me? He started nagging and, bargaining with God. God told him, this is it. You cut out the rope. At that time, I will think whether I rescue you or not. He said, no, man, I will not. It's up to you. You make the call. I am not. He doesn't change his mind. God tells him goodbye. He leaves. After 30 minutes, the guy dies. Frozen temperature. He cannot survive. He dies next day, 2 days, 3 days later. His family search for him. Everybody search for him. They find him. They find him. They saw him. He's dead, completely dead. They brought him, for burials and everything. And next day, the headlines of the newspapers, brothers and sisters, pay attention to this. Pay attention to this. All headlines say that a mountain climber has died while 1 meter above the ground. 1 meter above the ground. He could not see the ground, therefore he could not. He thought that God also doesn't see the ground. Where is the problem? Trust. We don't trust. God here is saying is that إِنْ يَكُونُوا فُقَرَاءَ يُغْنِيَهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. God will give you. Don't worry. The same way that He gave you, who were you? When you were in the womb of your mother, did you have anything? Did anything belong to you? The same way that I fed you, I made you adult, I will do the same thing for your son-in-law. For your son. The same thing. The same God exists. Unless I consider myself, I am the one. No one else can help me. Here is it, brothers and sisters. Number one is to search for those two things. Not to look for money. Other things, for example, the Prophet, the Imam Al-Hasan, and I think Al-Hasan probably Imam Al-Qazwini says that one man came to him and told him, to whom I make my daughter get married. The Imam, peace be upon him, says, زَوِّجْهَا مِنْ رَجُلٍ تَقِيٍّ. Make her get married with someone who's pious. فَإِنْ أَحَبَّهَا أَكْرَمَهَا. If he loves her, he will cherish her. وَإِنْ أَبْغَضَهَا لَمْ يَظْلِمْهُ. If he doesn't like her, he doesn't want her, he doesn't do bad things to her. This is the criteria has to be, brothers and sisters. What about the criteria for the bride? What kind of things that a groom should look and search for? You see, brothers and sisters, the influence of mother on the children much more than the influence of the father. There is no way that those two are equal. Always look at those noble people, the best people. When you search, when you dig through, you see it was their mother. We have Al-Allama Al-Ansari, Sheikh Murtada Al-Ansari, who established the Hawzat and the curriculum for Hawzat that even is being taught today in the housing. He became the grand scholar of all time with his, papers and his books. One day, they told his mother, they told her, you should be so happy about your son, Al-Allama Al-Ansari. She told him why. He should be happy with me. Because when I was pregnant, there was not a single time that I fed him, nursed him, without making wudu. Even in the middle of night, when it's so cold, and outside is snowing, I would go outside, make wudu, and then come and feed the son. When she fed him, he became Al-Allama Al-Ansari. If you look at the people, you see those, mashallah. صلوا على محمد وآله. is the wife that makes the difference, brothers and sisters. Here, I will keep everything short. The Prophet, peace be upon him, says, إِيَّاكُمْ وَخَضْرَاءُ الدَّمِ. قِيلَ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ وَمَا خَضْرَاءُ الدَّمِ. He said, الْمَرْأَةُ الْحَسْنَاءُ فِي مَنْبَتِ السُّوءِ. You see green pasture? Don't look at the green pasture. The green pasture, always look what is the roots beyond this green pasture. He said, don't look at this type of woman. Then he described. He said, someone who's externally beautiful, but internally disaster. Terrible. Avoid such kind of people. Don't get married with those who only have appearance, but inside they're hollow, from a very bad roots. Choose your mate, your spouse, only on those two things. The Imam, again, the Prophet used to from him, he says, لا تختار حسن وجه المرأة على حسن دينها. If you are between two, one religiously is better than the other one, but the other one is more beautiful. Choose the one with her religion, with her faith. God will compensate for the rest. Will give you the shortcomings. But if you go for the beauty only will stay a few years. Again, it will be fading away, will fade away, and will be gone. نسأل Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide our youth when they choose their spouses to be the best one, those who would help them with worshipping Allah and help them to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات تابع بيننا وبينهم للخيرات إنك مجيب الدعوات إنك قاضي الحاجات إنك على كل شيء قدير وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.